Welcome back to After the Fires, or After the Ashes, sorry. It's been a while. It was a couple weeks off, Shauna. It's episode 15, From the Ballot to the Burn Zone. Post-Remediation Realities and Post-Election Reflections. That sounds almost like alliteration there.
It was. I was on a roll. And then I couldn't remember what I'd said and what we were talking about.
You should go in PR, you know.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, maybe I could do okay in PR. I don't know. I'll have to think about that for future.
Well, I need all the help I can get with that. So anyway, it's also Veterans Day today. We're recording on the 11th. So for those of you that are sitting there going, why is Veterans Day falling on a Tuesday when we should have a 3-day weekend? Well, a little bit of history about this is this Veterans Day is, yes, we're celebrating all those who have sacrificed for our country, and thank you to all those who have served and volunteered to do so or not. We are so grateful to have the freedom that we live under because of you. But Veterans Day actually is Armistice Day. If you go outside the U.S., that is what it's called. And it's celebrating or commemorating the end of World War I or the Great War, depending on which continent you're on. And so we also want to say, thank you again, veterans.
Mm-hmm. I know I would second that as a thank you to everyone who served for their service, which I think is especially poignant now. I mean, even for me, in my family, everyone served. My uncle, my father, both of my grandfathers, in multiple, my grandfather was Navy, my uncle was Army. My father and his father were both Marines. His father, my paternal grandfather, was actually career military. He was an officer in the Marines. Both he and my father had full military funerals. So yeah, there is a lot of appreciation for those who put in that time and do the service. I also want to say, I think it's especially poignant to think about that service now at this stage, where I think that we're so removed from what, especially as we hear, and I don't want it to go too far, but I just want people to think about this, as we hear an entire political party, trying to blame things on Antifa.
Oh, here we go.
Okay,
like
all right. Our fathers and
this for the next episode.
Our grandfathers were the anti-fascists. Like, folks, we'll save it for the next episode. But I think it is a good setup for that reality of how far we have come. Our grandfathers are rolling in their graves, and our great-grandfathers, for considering what they fought for us in this country. Well, this ain't it.
I think this sense of history has been lost in a lot of these things, and I think terms are used today that probably shouldn't be used when looking at historical references or historical allegories. But we'll leave that for another episode. By the way, I just got back from Washington, D.C., and that's what Shauna's looking to poke the bear a little bit.
We will poke that bear in our next episode because there's so much poking to be done here.
Yes, but let's start
we have
with
lots of poking to do.
Let's stay more local and let's focus on what's going on in Altadena.
So actually, let's focus on the things that we didn't.
That's what most of the people really want to hear about. They don't give a shit about Washington.
Well, that's in a lot of ways. I don't even want to say not give a shit, but I think all of us in Altadena don't necessarily have the luxury of being as engaged in national politics as we perhaps typically would be or would like to be, right? Because we kind of have our hands full with our own lives and with local politics. And that's a good segue actually into a topic we wanted to cover that is a little bit more timely. Actually, we'd planned to talk about this on a couple of our last episodes. In the last couple of episodes, we had so much to talk about, we didn't get to it. But it was last week's drop from EFRU, the Eaton Fire Residents United, which is another local community org started by, operated, and run by more fire survivors in Altadena, who've been specifically looking at issues related to standing homes and specifically looking at those issues, as it is related to people trying to come back to standing homes or who have never left standing homes or are already back in their standing homes and are having, really serious issues, feeling, wondering, are these homes safe or not? And so, the EFRU group staged a big press conference last Friday at a neighbor's home on Tenoble, which, I am the queen of the non sequitur random sidebar.
Is it Tenoble or Tannable?
I don't know if I call it Tenoble. I might be wrong, actually.
I call it Tenoble, but I know there's some older residents here in Altadena that call it
Tenoble. Oh my gosh. I don't know. Potato, tomato, tomato. I don't know.
Well, it's for those that have moved in versus those who have lived here longer.
Oh shit, Steve. You want to make this an old school, new school conversation? All right. I see you. I see what's going on this morning. I share it because it's that stunning craftsman on the corner of the street spelled Tanoble and Altadena Drive. It's kind of set catacorner on the lot in the most kind of just really visually striking
the white
way.
One?
No, the craftsman. And it's actually, if you watch Beverly Hills 90210.
Oh, that's not Tanoble, that's Porter.
Oh, it is Porter. It is Porter. I think you're right.
You're talking about Brandon or Dylan McKay's house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was going to say, if you were to watch, everyone knows that the 90210 house is a few doors down on Altadena Drive. That was the Walsh house in the show. But that stunning craftsman, this always cracks me up because Dylan was like, from the wrong side of the tracks and lived with his single mom. And
didn't he live in Malibu or something?
Yeah,
like that?
didn't have any money, but P.S. we're living in this multi-million-dollar historic home in Los Angeles in this nondescript area. But the press conference happened to have been conducted there. We were in the back in the driveway that is up off of Porter, and it was really striking that there was still quite a bit of burn debris standing there, including like the remnants of a fiberglass ladder, a lot of burnt plastic, things that were burnt onto the driveway that you cannot eliminate without removing the driveway. And I don't know what the specifics were for that homeowner, but it was kind of interesting to see just that glaring, very, what we saw in January, seeing that right there of just glaring fire debris. So what the EFRU wanted to bring to light was some of the data that they have been looking at, and what they found largely was that all of these standing homes that had been remediated were being found to be contaminated at numbers above EPA thresholds, above the federal accepted numbers.
Well, a portion of them, not everyone.
Not everyone, but we're going to get into that.
Okay, I just want to be
We're
careful.
going to get into those numbers. I'm going to read the exact stats. Post-remediation, in some cases after two professional remediations or two professional cleanings, still having levels in those homes that were not considered safe, especially if you had children or pets. So what they came up with was that 50% of homes received access to asbestos testing, and of those, 38%, so 38% of the homes tested for asbestos post-remediation, post-cleanup, were found positive for asbestos. And 96% of homes tested were found to be positive for lead post-remediation. Ultimately, only 4 out of 10 remediated homes reached what they called, clearance levels for CAM-17 heavy metals, specifically lead and asbestos. And I say specifically lead and asbestos because there are a number of other CAM-17 heavy metals that are known carcinogens, known, contaminants of concern that were not even being tested for at all in the first place. 6 out of 10 remediated homes effectively are uninhabitable due to those lead and asbestos levels. So, this is not, as I like to say, and I found it interesting that when they took this information to the Department of Public Health, the response was that, yes, they were aware, no, they did not dispute this, but that they didn't want to issue a public health order because they, quote unquote, didn't want to panic the community. But I think what is really important to press upon with this is the fact that, the numbers are scary, they're concerning, we should all be concerned. If this is happening to your neighbor, it's happening to you. If it's not happening on your property now, it will be. And we've talked about this a lot, like, the position that some of the legal firms are taking, for example, in the litigation against SCE. As we see they're not doing specific lot-by-lot testing, and people are like, oh, well, my attorney group is testing my lot for contamination. Why isn't yours? And the reason why they're not in many cases is because they don't feel they need to. There's such a preponderance of data showing the entire community is contaminated and is an environmental disaster on so many levels that there's a very easy picture to be painted that the entire community is a problem. If it's showing up in this many places, it's a problem for all of us long term. And I think that is true. But again, the takeaway I think needs to be not panic and fear around this, but rather acceptance of our reality and knowing that this is actionable, right? This is actionable. People can continue to, and what it means though is we have to continue to fight with county, fight with our insurance companies, that everything remains insufficient. It just all remains insufficient. We need a real meaningful cleanup. We've already talked about the fact that our fire cleanup was incomplete. We know that compared to past because it was underfunded. They were $1 billion short of what they needed to do the full cleanup that would have been on par with past fires like Woolsey and Malibu. Was it Malibu?
Well, Woolsey is Malibu.
Thank you. Woolsey was Malibu. To make sure, guys, so many fires, my brain is, ooh.
Well, okay, let me ask you a question.
Yes, please.
Shauna, you are extremely versed in all of this. So everyone's going to sit here and say, okay, I get it. How do we solve it and who's to blame? I think first thing we go to is who's to blame. And I think, everybody's going to point the finger at the federal government.
Yeah.
So I know the governor is going to say, I asked for it. I was denied it. Are people playing politics with Altadena? Like, are we a pawn in all of this? Like, this is people's livelihood. This is their health. Like, at what point do we say, and more important to me, okay, I'm a solutions guy. I like to talk about the problem, but I like to find a solution. Who is advocating for the solutions, and what are those solutions that we're looking to get to? Like you're talking about insurance. There's a lot of people that are talking about insurance, but who's pushing insurance to get this done, and who's pushing the insurance commissioner? Who's leaning on our electeds?
I don't have an answer to that because I don't see it happening.
So there's nobody in the community picking this up right now.
Not in that way. As we know, people have been hammering on the insurance companies and on Lara, even calling for Lara to resign, which, personally, I think is a bit of a fool's errand because
he's
termed out. He's termed out. He's out next year. He's already out. Like in the time it would take us to organize a recall vote and vote, he's gone. So what's the problem?
Well, we don't have $300 million to do about
that too. Guess what? He sucks. He's out. Fuck him. Vote him out, guy. He's terming out, but just vote. But ultimately, it is like who's going to do this. I think unfortunately, it really does come down to the county needing to actually, and I want to say like county do your job, but it is like county do your job. Because county, ultimately, great. It would have been great for the state to support this. It would have been great for the federal government to support this. They haven't. They didn't. So now what? Well, but guess where we're back to? Where's the money, Steve?
Well, this is a segue to our conversation next about DC, but we'll that's the next episode. But I'm going back to this whole idea of, everybody's expecting that money's going to show up. Why are we not spending it? What's more important right now? Us or the money coming in? Like, this is a community that's been devastated. And if it is an environmental disaster zone, if it's a Superfund site or whatever, how real is it? And that's, I think, part of this too is it's distorting at least people. Like, I'm sitting there going, well, is it for real or is this Chicken Little? And I've asked you this question many times. Are we overplaying it, or is it really this bad?
It's really this bad. And I think if you want the canary in the coal mine in this one are pets generally, because their lifespans are so much shorter. Things turn up in them faster. And I think we talked about this. We touched on it briefly in another episode. People in the community are already seeing sick and dying pets with rare cancers, with unexplained respiratory issues. Unfortunately, again, they are the canaries in the coal mine. And I think the way I look at this is very simply, as anyone who knows me has heard me say 1,000 times in 1,000 contexts, the trend is your friend, right? We know that we have seen rare cancer clusters and respiratory issues in populations years post. They crop up in the 18 to 24-month mark and then go up from there. But in other areas post-fire, in Paradise and Woolsey, Marshall, all of these, like this happened. So I think it is magical thinking to believe that it will miraculously not be us, especially knowing that, our fire burned a lot because of the historic nature of our community and how much burned those 9,000 structures. We know that we dropped into the environment a lot of contaminant far beyond other similar urban wildfires. So, I think the time is now, but unfortunately, it's likely not going to be addressed. And it's going to be treated like so many other things are treated in the political landscape, which is very simply I can put my head in the sand and ignore this and pass it off because by the time it really blows up, I won't be in office. Yep. Exactly. It's not my problem. It's the next guy's problem.
Why take on the hard work?
Correct.
When you don't need to? That's
right. But it's going to land in our lap. It's our problem. And I've told you before, I feel like I've been Chicken Little. I feel like that on everything. Like I'm like, everybody, the sky is falling. You know, not in like a doom and gloom disaster kind of way, but rather a very, measured, hey, this shit's happening. Let's fight to have it addressed in our community now. Why can we not address these things in the community now versus waiting and having God knows how much worse these things become, right? As these issues just continue to compound themselves, right?
Well, I think part of it is, when you're doing this haphazard, when you're building this thing out step by step, it's hard because you don't get the full context, right? When you're going from crisis to crisis to crisis to crisis, it feels like everything's out of control.
Right.
And there's what Shelby Grad did this week in the LA Times. What was it? A couple days ago, where he kind of like backed up and got to a 10,000 foot view and said, hey, here's where all these failures evidence themselves.
Yep.
And let's go step by step. And I kind of did that on a Substack, I think a week ago. I can't even remember. I mean, after going away, it just kind of messes your whole schedule up. But the idea being like, look, let's take a step back and let's look at this thing. And instead of trying to like play whack-a-mole, let's build something a little bit more, cogent as an overarching strategy to kind of view this thing through. And I think that that's part of the problem is that, we talk about insurance today. We talk about, contamination tomorrow. We talk about housing the next day. We talk about the counties and their failures. We talk about the state and its failures. We talk about the federal government and their failures. Army Corps engineers, they did their job, but,
Except they didn't, and I have an anecdote to share about that later.
And that's my point is that we get back to that point where it's all of these things show up and we say, WTF, and we're like, this is where leadership comes in, right? This is where you have to say, all right, I've got my arms around this in all of these different areas, and now I'm going to start to, instead of playing whack-a-mole where they come up, I'm like, I know how I want to get into it and then solve the problem. And I feel like that's where the fatigue is hitting a lot of us, is that it's like something new keeps coming up every day. And it's a trust factor, right? Like, look at the story that's coming out about the fire in the Palisades, which we were going to talk about too. And the LA Times has been very open about this, which again, I'm questioning the why on that. But the idea being that fire really shows a dereliction of duty that goes all the way back to before the fires even hit. You have a mayor heading out of town when the fires are coming on the 4th and the 5th. They know there's red flag warnings. They know there's heat warning. They know there's wind warnings. They know this is going to be a fire warning. And then you have a fire that never got put out. And who was accountable for that? And at the end of the day, shit rolls uphill as much as it rolls downhill. And the person at the top is the person who has to be held accountable for all of this.
The fish rots from the head, Steve.
So where I'm going with all of this is we're reaching a point where we need to start getting our arms around this and stop just saying, okay, these are just problems that keep coming up on the one-offs. And I've been saying this for weeks now. These aren't one-offs. These are a pattern.
This gets into, and we're going to go off. I don't want to venture too far off topic because there's so much more we want to cover in this episode. But this gets into the issue of accountability and the lack thereof. And this idea that like, oh, we don't need to point fingers. We're not going to,
but there's no trust.
Correct.
This is the problem is that
this
now
is what I keep saying.
We don't have trust in them being
correct.
That we're getting the full story. And then the solution that's being provided is not even, is it real? Or is there something else? Is there another story that's going to come up in 6 months? It's going to tell us about another fire that was smoldering that, everybody just ignored and said, oh, oops, sorry. We're going to burn down 43,000, the homes of 43,000 people in the Palisades.
Right.
Oh, and we're going to take all those resources that were necessary to fight the Eaton fire and push them out there so that there's nothing available. So
and then just say, oops,
sorry.
Sorry, we let your town burn down because you were collateral damage, which again, if you're in our group, you've heard me say that 1,000 times because it's the truth.
And it's not the first time this has happened to us.
No, it's not.
Do you remember the La Cañada fire?
Exactly.
And RPV was going up in flames and everybody went down there and they're like, well, just let the La Cañada one run its way through. And it was it was a precursor to what happened here.
It was. It's not like we don't have evidence to see what's happened here, to understand contextually that it's going to happen again. And that's what we keep kind of hammering home. Again, I'll say it again. The trend,
to push a button.
The trend is your friend, right? I mean, that is it. And if it's Altadena today, this is what just happened. It was the Palisades. It is going to be La Cañada. It's going to be Sierra Madre, or
it's going to be
Duarte,
Pasadena.
or
Monrovia.
Exactly. Just pick a foothill community. La Crescenta, I think, is probably the one most likely to go up next. But it's going to be you. It's us today, and tomorrow it's you. And if we don't all demand accountability and answers, and this is why, again, I don't want to go too far off of our path, but why myself as Beautiful Altadena and so many others have been working together through the Altadenans for Accountability to demand an independent investigation by Rob Bonta with subpoena power, something meaningful that is just not another report that says, to your point, oops, sorry, we fucked up. Let's brush that under the rug, continue to pay people $500,000 a year salaries and move on. $500,000 a year salaries that come out of our tax money, by the way. Which is galling, because I, for one, would love to know where the hell where's our money? What does our money pay for?
Yeah,
It didn't pay for a fire
$50 billion
response.
budget. $500,000 is
It's nothing. So anyhow, the takeaway is we did want to actually talk a little bit about what was happening in the media. Steve and I realized that every day we're texting back and forth talking about the stories that have dropped, the stories that he and I have been being interviewed for, or talking to journalists about at multiple
you're
publications.
being interviewed for. I don't get
both
interviewed.
Of us. Yes, he does. He's a fibber. Yes, he does. He talks to the big national pieces. I do the local stuff. So, we talk about those things, and we realize we don't always have time to talk about them here, but I think it's, interesting to dovetail off of what was happening with the EFRU findings and their press conference Friday. And they did a really, like I said, that group did a fantastic job presenting all that evidence, presenting some personal stories. They had their data scientists there. They had a doctor there who also is an epidemiologist who was like, hey guys, this is scary and bad. And no, we're not here to create panic, but this is as bad as you think it is, and actually probably worse. And the bottom line is we need to do something to address it. And I was really glad to see so many media that were there and that this issue continued to be covered. I also thought it was great, and I know that you've already brought this up, that LA Times continues to keep us at the forefront. They had a piece yesterday, another piece today, talking about all of these failures in the fire response, which I think, it's critical that this continues to be brought to the forefront, because to your point, no accountability, no trust, and also no accountability, no resolutions for the future, no fixes, no corrections, no meaningful action. And until that happens,
it's not just
again,
the Times.
it's somebody else.
Politico's got
absolutely.
now on
Politico,
the beat too.
We've had some time. We just had a piece of Time magazine coverage. There's more Time magazine coverage coming, I believe. Hopefully. So, this is definitely, I was just asked to be interviewed by Le Monde, which is France's largest national.
The World, for those of you that don't speak French.
Correct, which is France's largest paper, and they're getting ready to do their 1 year. The New York Times still has a reporter assigned specifically to this, a local person whose beat is specifically following the fire cleanup and the fire rebuild. So I think, it's fascinating to see what's going on. Another story I think we're talking about, even if very briefly, was yesterday's LAist piece on the SCE offer plan, the quote-unquote final plan. And I won't get too deep into that because we've already spoken about it and we've covered it.
It's not SCE. It's not their money.
Yeah, it's our money. It's like, let's talk about how to give you your money, how to get your money. This is what I've started saying to people in our group when they're like, well, I want my money from SCE. I'm like, no, you want your money.
Yeah, SCE is going to kick in $1 billion.
Correct. And our money funded the other $22 billion and will continue to. So,
and then that money is going to be used again to stock up
for the next, and it's going to stockpile for the next inevitable
Yep.
disaster, because this is their business plan. And it works. And when you have a governor and a bunch of electeds who sign off on it, why not keep it going? But I think the biggest takeaway from that piece was, you know, the reality that they straight up said in this story, the SCE media reps, you know, their goal is and their intention is not to make anyone whole. Like this offer, in other words, our offer is shit.
Wait, time out. Hold on a second.
Steve didn't read the piece, guys.
No, I didn't.
So Steve, welcome to the party.
Yesterday. Okay, so the McChrystal thing, a couple weeks ago, I don't know, somebody forgot to push a button, was the line from that McChrystal report,
right?
The person who wrote it.
Yep.
I mean,
they literally,
I'm just wondering,
I know.
Can they just hire you to do the PR? Because I mean, seriously, Shauna, like somebody's screwing this up major.
I know. I've never seen. So for anyone who does not know, the jokes about PR is that I, for a decade plus, had a hospitality-focused boutique marketing and PR agency.
Google her, you'll find it.
And did a lot of PR. Okay, so I get it. And let me tell you, whatever they're paying for the crisis PR that they're getting, they should get their money back because it fucking sucks. And the goal is not to create a new crisis with your PR.
Unless they're trying to do that so people don't take the settlement.
To what?
I don't know.
That's not a strategy. It's not a thing.
I just got back from Washington. Logic doesn't make sense anymore.
To say that math doesn't math is an understatement.
I get that.
All right, let's talk about why. So this is the quote. This is the direct quote. I love this quote. The program is structured to minimize financial impact to the company while providing meaningful support to those affected, said Edison spokesperson Gabriela Omelas in an email to LAist.
In an email?
In an email.
It wasn't even a phone call?
It wasn't even a phone call.
Wow, she thought about that.
But also, you thought about it and you put it in writing.
Oh, my God.
Holy shit. SCE,
wow.
Call me. We can talk about my number because holy shit, this is embarrassing. Yeah, straight up. The program that they just confirmed that
if you
these
can see
offers.
my face,
I know
my jaw.
The incredulousness is filled the room. Everyone in the studio is like, "What?" Because people haven't read this and seen it, and it is disturbing.
I can't. I'm just sitting here trying to figure out how you could actually say that
with a straight face
in writing.
No shit.
I mean, I could get it. Like at least the McChrystal person was on a phone call.
Yeah.
Like,
and you could tell, that the
talking
McChrystal report was like very
right.
kind of off the cuff, right?
Yeah.
It was like, maybe they thought maybe that's what happened. Maybe it was like someone forgot to push a button. Nobody really knows. Okay.
And of course, then then they're able to twist it a little bit and put it into the story, make it fit.
Yep.
Wow.
No, this is a straight up.
Holy shit. Sorry.
Premeditated statement. I know. Take it in for a minute. So in case you're debating the offer, it sucks. Don't take it. It's pennies on the dollar unless you're in a situation where you absolutely have to. And I understand that. And there's no judgment there. And if you just need money tomorrow, go for it. But if you think that the alternative is waiting 5 years for money, that's not going to happen. The judge already set a trial date of January 2027 for this. Historically, that means all cases are settled or in process of settlement by that time. And SCE is sure as hell not going to court with thousands of us. They're not. Every one of these will be settled out. So, just do not take this unless you really have to, but at least be knowledgeable about what's happening. Don't be lied to. Don't think that it's a good deal. It's not. They're trying to save themselves money. Every single person who takes the offer will save them money. And that's the one and only thing this is. This is damage control for them because they fucking suck.
Wow.
Next, I'll tell you how I really feel.
Okay.
Let's move on.
On that note,
Shauna's
a little wound up today, by the way.
Shauna just maybe had a little too much caffeine in short order on an empty stomach. So Shauna's going to step away from the coffee for a minute. But let's talk about the elections.
Which ones?
All of them. All of them.
Let's start with Altadena Town Council.
Let's talk about our local ones.
Let's talk about the very, important ones.
I mean, I don't know that I would call it important considering the majority of Altadena had no idea it happened.
Anybody driving up Allen saw the vote here thing.
Cool. So those of you who live in town
Prime
still knew that, or in that particular part of town. But I was actually a little surprised by how many people were like, I had no idea this was happening. Actually, a town council rep who's in our group specifically who won they had an incumbent seat that was contested, but they won. But we're talking about the fact that, it's a hot mess. Those are the words. Like the election process here is a hot mess. And my takeaway from it, or my take on it, was that it is treated like everything else county in Altadena. It is not taken seriously. There is no funding. That town council has a $0 budget. So no wonder we have no local comms, even though they're supposed to set it up.
It's an advisory board, Shauna.
Advisory board or not, if we want to take it seriously, let's at least give it a little money for basic functions. Let's let people know that there's an election.
Turnout that you had last time.
So here, for anyone who's curious of how many people vote across all of our tracks, across all of Altadena, are 43,000, 44,000, depending on which census you go with, residents.
And not all of them can vote.
And of which you need to extrapolate out how many of those are over 18s and can vote, not children in the household, which takes that number down significantly. But if you look at that and the reality that more than 20,000 of us are still displaced, over 3 days across multiple locations, there was voting at the library, voting at Prime Pizza. They counted a total of 890 ballots cast, and that was a record number for the town council. Historically,
hey, that's even more than we have permits issued.
Oh, Steve.
Sorry.
Steve's doing my job today. We are going to talk about that in the next episode, so get ready. We're going to talk about rebuilding stats in the next episode. But
well, that was a teaser.
It was a teaser. Nonetheless, that number of 890 was a record turnout. That was more than double the usual turnout. So get your head around that for a minute. That barely 2% of our population voting was a record turnout that was up from the typical less than 1%.
Thank you, Gavin. You got us all energized.
Oh my gosh. It's shocking to me. But anyhow, I was happy to see some people get their seats. A new person, in fact, which, give me a second here. I want to see which he is. What tract are you?
If it's a point
4610. It's not a point. It's tract 4610. Had 4 people running, and Anton Anderson got that. Anton was my recommendation.
Yeah, that's
and I was really happy to see that he got that. It was a really close race for tract 4613, which had some new blood in it. Sylvia Vega was defending her incumbent seat and had a very strong showing from a 20-something in the community, Alexandra Kirshner, who pulled in just 20% less votes than Sylvia did. So
he got...
She.
So she got 8 votes instead of 10?
Well, it was actually 86 and 58.
I'm just teasing.
No, well, but I mean, you're teasing, but for real, people have won those seats.
No, I know
on
that.
Literally 0 votes, and on average, it is like less than 10
is
votes.
Rooted in truth.
Well, that is truth. I mean, these numbers are extraordinary when you see people getting, like some of the top. Like here we go, Morgan Werledge, who is someone else. He's on tract 4601. Morgan is again one who I was recommending that I would have voted for if I could have. He got 99 votes. That's a huge number. I don't know if anyone's ever cracked 100 votes for this. So, and again, it is historically like 5 votes, 3 votes.
But the important thing is the town council is going to have a new leader, right?
Yes and no. Most of the executive team are not up for re-election until next year.
Oh, okay.
So you have just one person, the chair, who's out.
Well, I mean, that's a pretty significant change.
It is. But the rest of that body
And thank
remains.
you for leading us.
So much leadership.
No. Look, it's been a tough job. It's been a tough year.
If it were a job, I would agree with you, but it wasn't. I mean, I guess it was tiresome going around having all those photo ops and being given awards for doing such a great thing for the community. Because, no one else is doing that. But I digress. Do you want to talk about Prop 50?
What, the ass kicking that the Republicans took? They should have had you running comms on the no side too. It's funny. We were at Off the Record in Washington the night when I went into D.C. last Tuesday, and it was that evening, and the votes hadn't come in yet. And next, like a table over from me, was the senior White House correspondent for CNN, and I had made that cartoon, or AI had made that cartoon that was posted on my Substack of Gavin and Trump sitting like in diapers and with boxing gloves, and like the nanny standing over him like in the Muppets, where you can't see the face, saying, "Boys, 2 wrongs don't make a right." And it was put on like a coaster, like Off the Record, they have these great coasters, these caricatures of all these politicals. And we gave it to the senior White House correspondent from CNN, and she cracked up. But I mean, I think that was like the highlight of the night from the no side, like that it was ridiculous in many respects. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. The word in DC was either it's going to be really close in 26 and this is going to have no effect, or it's going to be a total blowout and a blue wave. and this will have no effect. I mean, that's essentially what I was hearing. So, we traded away our democratic, oversight for nothing. So,
do you want to talk about why you opposed Prop 50? I think because
I didn't like the policy of it.
I think because all of us who consider ourselves Democrats or consider ourselves
it wasn't a
progressive
Trump
or any of this.
I didn't see it as a Trump thing.
There we are. There it is. I think it's important to talk about
I felt that it was a California thing, and I thought that the smart move Gavin did was he nationalized it to make Trump the boogeyman. And I think that the problem was those that were supporting it for the most part were cast as Republicans, and they did a horrible, horrible job on that campaign. I mean, it was, to me, very simple how to run that one, and they didn't do a good job with it. And I guess my issue really came down to, I just thought that we were giving away something very short for a long-term detriment. And it reminded me a lot of what Harry Reid did with the filibuster in Washington. I know the filibuster is a bad word, but it preserved minority rights. And, when you're not in power, it made sure that there was still some ombudsman. And that's the way I felt that independent commission worked. I mean, look, even down to those independent commissioners that came out in support of Prop 50, in support of the governor's position, they ultimately were talking about how the policy was the right policy. And to me, it was about preserving the right policy. And I just feel like the further we erode these checks that we put in place, the closer we get to something that we don't really want. And, anybody who's read my Substack knows where my opinions were and what I feel the effects are going to be. And I never thought this was a national issue. I thought it was very much going to be a California issue. It was nationalized, and that was a smart play. But ultimately, it's going to come back to California and control of California and our $330+ billion a year budget. So, mazel tov to the governor. I mean, You guys did the job. You won. You ran up the score. But, it was interesting, too, as I was texting back and forth with a prominent political writer here in California from one of the publications. And while the governor exceeded Kamala's vote from on the yes side, the no side was very similar to the Trump vote. Mm-hmm. It was 36 to 38%, which was right within where it should be. So, I mean, it wasn't the blowout that it looks like in my mind, because I think that, unfortunately, I think it's because it was a binary vote as opposed to multiple candidates on a ballot. It made it seem much more. It was actually very similar to what we had seen historically in 2024. And it was very much within the norm of what California was. You didn't hear about that in the media, but that was what my takeaway was.
I don't disagree, as you know. It was a lot of interesting dinner and casual coffee conversation with friends and neighbors when I would said, actually, I didn't vote yes for Prop 50, and here's why. And actually, I loved that quote in Politico of what was it? The oh my gosh, I mean, of course I can't remember the quote, and now I'm going to want to look it up. But it was basically like the
sugar high?
No, the never-ending, the gerrymandering palooza, like the never-ending gerrymandering palooza. Like this is what it sets us up for.
Well, that's what it's going to be. And look, at the end of the day, it's marginal in terms of
benefit gain.
I didn't see it. Look, if it's going to be a wave, those seats would have been gone anyway. They would have gone Democrat for the most part. So it really wasn't going to change anything. I guess look, Gavin.
We won on a talking point.
An obscure talking point.
Yeah.
And I think that, and you go back to the post-election responses, I did a post on this as well, where the fear that I have is that this is going to encourage further sugar high type politics and performative politics, as opposed to the substantive politics that we really need to address the issues in this country, this state, this community. And that's the fear that I take away, is that these become the wins the consultants talk about. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this the next session, because Sean and I have very differing opinions on what happened in New York and the shutdown. And so I thought it was a chance to be more substantive, and that's what bothers me.
No, I understand. And I don't disagree with you. And I think just in general, and I've said this before, this entire process, the fire, having to kind of fight for our lives on so many fronts, having to deal with our electeds, having to be inside the machine. It's like, going to Disneyland and peeking behind the curtain. But in particular, the Democratic Party, because we are in a blue state, and I, identify as a Democrat. Or I certainly have for a long time. Really more of a democratic socialist. But anyhow, the point being that, when there are problems in this state, we don't have a MAGA government to blame. We can't blame Trump. The problems that exist in our state, in our county, even with our, having a Republican leader, as we happen to have in Catherine Barger, who is our 5th district supervisor, these are ultimately, we are overwhelmingly a Democratic state. So this is Democratic policy that's failing. And I think we really have to look inside. This has been an eye-opener for me.
Well, and that's been the knock against Gavin running nationally.
I know.
That,
but people love him nationally. It's kind of wild.
No, the base does.
But it's wild how many people are really into him. I don't know.
Well, he's got great hair and great teeth.
You just described a show horse, but that's okay.
But I mean, until he comes with substantive policy.
I know.
And, that was what made 797 so head scratching, was that was substantive policy he could have taken and owned and, blasted everywhere and used to, go beyond. But it chose not to. And that was the part that I just, one day somebody will explain to me the politics behind that, but I don't get it.
I wouldn't hold my breath. Let's talk about, I'm going to move us to our next topic because I know that people are probably falling asleep at the wheel listening to this, and I don't want to be responsible for that. We're going to talk more about this in the next episode too, but we're at the 10-month mark, right? So it's time to really look at things and go,
well,
hey,
it's not
where
just
are
the
we?
10-month mark.
That's what I'm saying.
It's
we're
the
coming,
holidays.
Correct. That's what I'm going to say.
So it's
we're getting into that.
You're it's like a.
I mean, we have homes in our community. It's to give context again. For people who are listening who don't necessarily live or didn't live in Altadena. The fire happened on January 7th. It was right around what we call 12th night, which a lot of us take down our decorations.
I hadn't taken down my decorations.
I hadn't taken down. I had started the pair down, but was preparing that weekend to take the rest. Like I actually took a snap. Snapped a quick photo of the house, all dark, as I left with, the Christmas tree just with white lights. The ornaments were down, but the Christmas tree still up and garland still up. And, if you drive our community, you will still see standing homes with last year's Christmas decorations still on them because those families still haven't returned. And so there's heading into the holidays, be it with a standing home in that community, in our community, or if you're like myself and you had a total loss and you're looking at traditions and things that, like Steve and I were talking about this earlier, like there are like certain photos and things that I would pull out. Of like past generations at the holidays that would actually hang on my tree, or having the cards that your deceased family had written to you, and all those kind of things that we all kind of lean into. It's really heavy as we go into the 1-year anniversary that is right around the corner, but going through the holidays, I'm really seeing it in the group. People are feeling a lot of heaviness. It's really hitting hard, and the holidays are going to be really hard for a lot of people.
I think so. And I think it's like a double whammy. It's not just the anniversry of it and the fatigue and just
we're fucking tired.
And then you add the holidays on top of it and what the holidays mean. And, the holidays are very special in Altadena. We've got Christmas Tree Lane.
Yeah.
You've got, Upper Hastings Ranch, which is not far away, but
and who was also impacted by the fire.
They too got, they got impacted.
They had homes lost up there too.
So it's a time of, we were talking about, we were starting to get the stuff out in our house, and we got rid of a lot of it because of the fires, and it was just the realization that holy shit, this is happening. And I'm working on getting a post up about this because my heart hurts for so many, and this is going to be a tough time. And there just aren't words, I guess, is the best way.
There aren't. Nothing will ever be the same. None of our traditions will be kept. We have to make new ones. There are a few events happening that have been organized by community members and by those outside the community. There are a couple doing ornament things, but I mean, like there was one that was like ornaments for Altadena they opened up their slots for people to register, and they were gone the minute they were opened.
I'm glad that people are still remembering.
I am too, but so many people were like, "Oh my gosh, I was like waiting for this and counting on this, and it's now I can't get in because there's just not enough for everyone because there's so many of us, 22,000 people impacted, and that's just the total loss. I mean, that's not.
I thought that was people volunteering, not people receiving.
No, for the receipt for
I
recipients.
thought it was people. I thought it was people.
Oh no, that would be good. That would be great.
Sorry,
but no, for recipients, and I was thinking, and Steve and I were talking about this before we started recording too, is like Hanukkah, and thinking about like I don't have a menorah, I don't have my silver, I don't have my Shabbat glass that even if I only used it once every 3 to 5 years, I liked knowing that it was there. And seeing it in the cupboard, and all of your silver and that you've inherited across generations. Just it is a very heavy reminder beyond the everyday reminders that we all have to live with on a day-to-day basis. It's going to be hard. So I'd say be gentle with one another, and look for all of the various resources and orgs that are out there, but also like just straight up mental health resources. I know I'm looking forward to my therapist appointment tomorrow. It's probably not alone, but there are a lot of groups that are doing that have been doing and will continue to, and are kind of ramping up for the holiday season, knowing how hard this is going to be for people. It's a lot of heaviness. There have been so many stories and posts shared in our group, because it's just really hitting folks right now, and it will continue to for the next few months. But like one woman, shared a story in there of like how specific her collection was of African American Christmas decorations, and like her collection of Black Santas, and the things that are just, they're irreplaceable. It's hard, and people in the community wanting to kind of support her rebuilding that collection, but it's tough. I mean, I shared with some people in the group when they were back to the ornament thing, talking about how sad it was that they couldn't get a spot because they were depending on it. I said, you know what? That prompted me to drag my ass out of my house on a Saturday night and go out and go shopping. Not for retail therapy, but to force myself to find a lens to view this in that was not just awful, right? It was like, I got to start fresh. I got to just embrace it. I'm going to pick a theme. I'm only going to buy things that I love. That theme is going to be absolutely nothing like what I had before, because I cannot stand the comparison. I can't do it. Some people want to try and replace things. I'm beyond that. I just need to it's a new chapter. Everything is different. Everything is new. It's a new path. And that's what I did. And in my little empty, office or half empty office room, because I still haven't set up my office, which is a whole other conversation today. I was like, God damn it, today I'm setting up my printer. 10 months later, I'm like, I really need a printer.
Who uses a printer?
Me, because you periodically have to print things. Or you want to know what I did with my printer? I printed off all of my cake notes and recipes, and then hand wrote in gram by gram all of my edits. And as we've talked about before, like I had a cottage bakery, folks, and I did gluten-free, dairy-free cakes and bakes, and one of the things that took me months to figure out, and then it hit me like a ton of bricks when it did, was that, oh my God, all of my recipes and notes were handwritten, and all of those folders were gone with the fire. I don't have a single cake recipe. And on that note, let's talk about, Thanksgiving coming up, right? So I'm going to mention quickly, as we wrap up this episode, I want to mention Adelaide, who you've heard me talk about a few times, because she really needs business in Altadena, and her shop is so beautiful on North Fair Oaks, across from Fair Oaks Burger. She does floral arrangements and tons of gifts and things, frankly, that are fabulous for the holidays, and I hope people patronize her. But we have kind of paired up to do a Beautiful Altadena Friendsgiving event. It's going to be a pie night, bring a sweet or a savory pie. We're going to have drinks. We're going to set up a long table on the street. And that's on Sunday the 23rd, and you can find info for that in our private group on Facebook, which I hope anyone who is a local community member, anyone who's a community member on January 7th, I really hope people find that info and come join us. Just, it'll be good, I think, for all of us to be in community right now, however we can. And for us, for me, for the Beautiful Altadena group, it's marks also finally getting back to in-person events, which I've been threatening to do for months. And just frankly, I still need to rekindle our book club. and our women's group. I want to have time. And I can't say that. I don't know how. I've never been such a busy unemployed person. For an unemployed person, I have a very busy life between insurance and activism and rebuild and everything else going on. It's crazy.
Well, thank you for doing it.
Well, we're all doing it. Thank you for doing it. We're all doing it. So I'm going to wrap us up. Actually, even before I jump into that, as we're talking about those resources. If you don't already, follow us on Instagram, or if you're on Facebook, Facebook's fine too. But separate of our private group on Facebook, our public Facebook page, as well as our Instagram account, both at Beautiful Altadena, have in stories. Follow us on stories. I constantly share every day dozens of resources, events, mental health resources, rebuilding resources, things that are going on. Food giveaways, food drives, all of these things, especially as we, again, head into the holidays, especially a lot of people have been really hard hit financially. Of course, the loss of SNAP benefits, all of these things. So if you're looking for those,
they're going to be restored. They're going to be restored for the full year.
Yeah. But if you want to see those things, find those things, you can find them always there. And finally, our small business shout out for this one, for this episode, is going to be the Easy Halal Market at Hen's Teeth Plaza. So if anyone's not familiar, there is Hen's Teeth Plaza is at Woodbury,
and Woodbury.
Woodbury and Los Robles, kind of cat a corner from the Eagles area, and is such a fantastic shop. Aside from being a halal butcher, they also have a lot of imported food, and so especially if there's any Brit expats, they always keep a lot of chocolate. And I think I saw Quality Street there last Christmas. So it's a great spot to know about. They also have a bunch of awesome neighbors, including King's Burger, the chicken joint. I can never remember, but there's a Mexican chicken joint for whole chickens and sides, like really good tortillas and beans and roast corn. And then, of course, Dim Books and Boba. And Dim Books and Boba opened up immediately post-fire, they had just opened prior to the fire. And were very quick to reopen getting their place remediated, and have become quite an event hub. They do a lot of little events. In fact, they even have, I noticed, a Monday Mahjong night, which I was loving because I play Mahjong. It's Hong Kong Mahjong for anyone who's interested. But anyhow, there's just a lot of good stuff happening in that plaza, a lot of great businesses. I wrote about both Easy Halal Market and Dim in the Substack. So if anyone wants to go to the Substack and do a little search, you can find some great opening pieces and photos with more info on them. But otherwise,
that's it. All right. Well, let's sign off.
Want to tell them where to find us?
Oh, yeah. Well, I think you've told everybody where to find you.
Yeah.
Instagram, Facebook, Substack.
Yep.
And me, it's just Substack. I'm lame. So I'm at the Alta Policy Walk. She's at Beautiful Altadena.
Yep. And that's it for this one. This is episode 15. And we'll see you soon for episode 16.
All right. Take care.